And as we discussed previously, we discussed that what goes into the title and what the title shows, and what is the abstract of a research paper, and 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 then we also discussed about the components and contents of the introduction. And yeah, so today we will see a small portion. We will begin our continue our discussion over that topic, and we will just go through the limitations of the study that normally we include as part of the introduction. It is normally included as in the last paragraph of the you can say introduction. We have to mention 1 or 2 lines, okay, what are the limitations of the current study. Although we also claim the advantages or benefits of current technique or methodology, but also we also if we have some limitation related to our current study, we should also mention that. Honesty is very important in writing a research paper, because when you submit it to some journal or conference, it goes in under the process of review, and the editor or reviewer, they are accessing the your manuscript critically. So if you already mentioned the limitation of your research paper, then they feel very happy about it, because they think that the scientist or the author is very honest about his contribution, and so they just are somewhat lenient in that. So limitations of study, you should indicate it as possible as soon as possible that what you are intent to do and what you are not going to attempt. You may limit the scope of your paper by any number of factors. For example, time, personal, gender, age, geographical location, nationality, and so on. So these are some of the factors you can mention. If the study is conducted in some geographical area, and it is confined to some factors, so you should mention it that these are the limitations of this current study. And yeah. So next thing that goes into your manuscript or research paper is literature review. Literature review or a background, sometimes we mention it as a background as well. So this is very, you can say, formal part of a research paper. Research paper and the research process uncovers what other writers have written about your topic. So basically, in literature review or background, you are just covering the, you can say, domain work or domain knowledge that is all that already people have done in that particular area. So your education paper should include a discussion or review of what is known about the subject and how the knowledge was acquired. Once you provide the general and a specific context of the existing knowledge, then you yourself can build on others' research. So basically, the idea here is that you try to cover or try to mention for the readers that what has been already been done in that area, what other people have contributed towards that particular topic, and so that you can build your case and also point out the gaps in the current literature. So this part of research paper is supposed to provide the theoretical framework that you elaborated during your research. So basically, obviously, this provides a theoretical framework. You will be expected to present the sources you have studied while preparing for the work ahead. and these sources should be credible from an academic standpoint, including educational books, peer-reviewed journals, and other relevant publications. You must make sure to include the name of the relevant authors you have studied and add a properly formatted citation that explicitly points to their works you have analyzed and including the publication year. So basically, literature review is a very essential and very important part of your research paper or research manuscript because you try to give theoretical framework of your study and it and as you go through and also you establish a fact in the literature review that you have go through you have gone through enough literature enough you can say content enough scientific discoveries that you are going to conduct the current study and that led to your current contribution as well. Next part is methodology. Sometimes people call it as materials and methods as well. Some methodology, some or research methodology. So there are different names according to the discipline you are in. But overall, I would call that a methodology because it will also include materials or experimental setups and also the method itself. So different parts of research paper have different aims, and here you need to point out the exact methods you have used in the course of your research work. Typical methods can range from direct observation to laboratory experiments or statistical evaluations. Whatever you choose, your chosen methods are, you need to explicitly point them out in this section. So this is the overall goal or objective of this section methodology. So what we normally do that you discuss your research methodology in this section. Did you employ quantitative or qualitative research methods? Did you administer a questionnaire or interview people? Any field related research conducted? How did you collected the data? That is very important. Did you utilize other libraries or archives, and so on? And similar things goes into the methodology. So as you can see, all of them they are actually two parts of methodology. One is that how you conduct your research, and second is how you actually try to analyze it or collect the data and to achieve your goal. So basically, the methodology, as I mentioned, that it has two parts. One is materials or setup, other is methods. So in the field of methods, in a materials or setup would describe the materials separately only if the study is so complicated that it saves space this way. It you should include specialized chemicals, biological materials, or any equipment or supplies that are not commonly found in laboratories. Do not include commonly found supplies such as test tube, pipette tips, beakers, etc., or standard lab equipment such as centrifuges, pipettes, the other equipments. So basically, experiment setup or materials gives you overall view that okay, if someone want to conduct the same experiment as you did, then how should he do and what should how he should actually repeat or get the same results or get the same equipment. So basically, normally you mention some generalized or specialized equipment here, and how the flow of the experiment goes to that so that you can get your results. So this is experiment setup. Normally people draw some diagrams as well so that the reader can easily understand how the, the data has been collected or how the experiment has been conducted. If use of a specific type of equipment, a specific enzyme, or a culture from a particular supply is critical to the success of the experiment, then it and so should be singled out, otherwise not. So this is very important that particularly for in biological or chemical, in biology and chemistry experiments or scientific experiments, if there is a very specialized um, equipment or you can say piece of technology you are using in your experiment, then you should explicitly mention it and also mention the name of the company or source. Materials may be reported in a separate paragraph, or else they may be identified along with your procedure. Uh, in chemistry or biological experiment, we mention it as a material, but in computer science, we mention it as a experimental setup or experimental settings, which include computer or how the if it is more than one computer, how all those computers were arranged into a single network and so on. In biosciences, we frequently work with solutions, refer to them by name, and describe completely, including concentrations of all regions and pH of all aqueous solutions and solvents, or if we're non-aqueous. So these are some of the things that we normally have to mention, because if someone else want to repeat our results, so that he can also replicate our experimental setup of materials as well. Then the second part comes with in the goes into methodology is methods itself. See the examples in the writing. Sorry, example I have may have or not. I never know. Describe the methodology completely, including such specifics as temperature, incubation times, and so on. Report the methodology, not details of each procedure that employed the same methodology. To be concise, present methods under headings devoted to specific procedures or the groups of procedures. So basically, in materials, we give the details of the equipment or chemicals or setup itself, and but in the methods we describe how we use them. So first we have to generalize report how procedures were done and how not how they were specifically performed on a particular day. So you can say overall strategy of your experiments. For example, reports samples were diluted to a final concentration of this. Don't report that 135 microliters of sample. This is buffer to make the protein concentration of this. So just put it in a very generalized way and don't go into the extra details. Always think about what would be relevant to an investigator or at another institute working on his or her own project. If well-documented procedures were used, report the procedures by name, perhaps with reference, and that's all. For example, Bradford assay is well known. So if a known procedure are known, you just have to mention their name, just go and give their references. Don't mention the whole procedure again and again in the manuscript. You need not report the procedure in full, just that you use a Bradford assay to estimate protein concentration and identify what you use as standard. The same is true for the STS page method and other well-known procedures in biology and biochemistry. In computer science, actually, it is similar case, like if you're using some machine learning algorithm like a decision tree or the support vector machines, so you just mention the name of the algorithm that you have used. You don't have to go into the details of how they work. Just mention the algorithm and cite them. So, what should be the style of the methodology? It is awkward or impossible to use active voice when documented methods without using first person, which would focus the reader's attention on the investigator rather than the bug. Therefore, when writing up the methods, most authors use a third person passive voice, use normal prose in the this and in every other section of the paper, avoid informal list, use in complete sentences. So these are some of the, you can say, grammatical, um, you can say, ways, consideration that should, um, you should consider. The main point here is that you should always write it in a style that the the attention should be on the method or the work itself rather than the on the reader. So the writing style should be because everyone cannot have a common writing style. So whatever style, whatever your style is, just try to reread it and try to focus on the fact that you need to present the work in a way that the reader should focus on um the work rather than the reader focus on the investigator. What you should avoid by writing the methodology is material methods are not a set of instructions. Omit all explanatory information and background. Save it for the discussion. Omit information that is relevant to a third party, such as what color ice buckets you used or which individual logged in the data. So these things should be avoided. First of all, you should keep in mind that it is not a set of instruction, and you should not provide information such as that which person logged the data and which person I mean, and you are going for some background extra information like using uh, describing the well-known methodologies like machine learning algorithms of like SVM, how SVM works, and this and that. So just avoid those things in the methodology. So I guess today we will keep it here. And if you have any question, you can ask.